Welcome to UPSC Explainer. We are going to discuss today, the Hindu, in the form of questions and answers. Retribution for the South, accolade for the North. What is the main topic discussed in the article? The article discusses the complex relationship between population control and its political and economic implications within India's federal structure. How have the southern states of India approached population control? The southern states have successfully controlled their population growth through social development and economic growth. What challenges do these southern states face despite their success in population control? Despite their efforts, they might encounter reduced political representation in the Lok Sabha and decreased financial transfers from the union government. How does the article compare India's approach to federal representation with another country? The article draws a parallel with Canada, where lesser populous provinces consistently get more representation in the national parliament, contrasting India's formula of one person, one vote. How does population control impact financial transfers between the union government and states? The population impacts the fiscal transfers from the union government to the states. The Finance Commission's formula for tax revenue distribution among states is influenced by population metrics, leading to potential reductions in transfers to southern states. What is the broader implication of the population dynamics on the economic front? Population dynamics influence economic aspects like per capita income and the state's share in the union government's tax revenue, potentially disadvantaging states that have controlled their populations. What is the article's stance on the current situation? The article emphasizes the need to re-evaluate the metrics used for political representation and fiscal transfers to ensure equity and fairness in the federal system, given the inherent inequalities faced by states that have effectively controlled their populations. What is the significance of Article 81 of the Indian Constitution in this context? Article 81 stipulates that Lok Sabha constituencies should be equal by the size of the population, which affects the political representation of states based on their population dynamics. How do the growth rates of the population differ between northern and southern states of India? Between 1971 and 2011, the proportion of the population of certain northern states increased from 44% to 48.2%, whereas the proportion of the population of the 5 southern states declined from 24.9% to 21.1%. How might the political representation change if current population trends continue? If the trends persist and the formula of equal size of Lok Sabha constituencies by population is enforced, the 5 southern states might lose 23 seats, while the northern states could gain 37. How does the one person, one vote dictum affect the first-past-the-post election system? In a first-past-the-post system with a multi-party contest, winners often secure victory with less than one-third of the votes polled, potentially diluting the essence of one person, one vote. What implications do family planning and population control policies have on political representation? States that have effectively implemented these policies and controlled their populations might face reduced political representation, which can be seen as penalizing them for their positive efforts. How has the Finance Commission's approach to population changed over the years? The earlier finance commissions based state shares largely on population size. However, over time, they reduced the weight assigned to population. By the 14th Finance Commission, demographic changes since 1971 were also considered, and by the 15th, the 2011 population was directly taken into the formula. How does per capita income factor into fiscal transfers and revenue distribution? The per capita income of a state is viewed as a proxy for its ability to raise its own revenue. States with higher per capita incomes might get a lower share of the union tax revenue, while those with lower incomes, often due to higher populations, could receive a larger share. Keeping tabs on carbon with an accounting system. What does the term polycrisis refer to? The term polycrisis, as popularized by Adam Tooze, represents the interconnected crises related to climate change impacting various sectors and domains. How does the article suggest addressing the challenges of the climate polycrisis in India? The article emphasizes the need for a holistic approach that ensures resilience, equity, and justice while recognizing the interconnected impacts of climate change across sectors. What is the proposed carbon infrastructure? The carbon infrastructure is an idea similar to digital infrastructure, which aims to create opportunities for a future carbon regime, considering carbon flows in policy formulation at every level. Why is measurement crucial in addressing the climate crisis? Measurement is vital because what cannot be measured cannot be accounted for. Measuring carbon emissions, from individuals to the national level, allows for effective carbon management. How can carbon accounting potentially change public finance? Carbon accounting can lead to the introduction of a carbon tax return system, revolutionizing public finance. It would make carbon inflows and outflows visible, potentially enabling carbon surpluses to be financed. How does the article compare carbon accounting with financial accounting? The article draws parallels between money accounting, which tracks financial inflows and outflows, and the need for carbon accounting to track carbon inflows and outflows at a granular level. What is the potential implication of having a national carbon accounting (NCA) system? An NCA system can set emission reduction targets, predict future emission reductions, and track progress against these goals. It introduces the concept of carbon books to the nation, making carbon accounting mandatory for businesses and individuals. How might a national carbon budget change the perspective on sustainable development? A national carbon budget, alongside economic GDP, provides an innovative lens for sustainable development. It encourages countries to focus not just on economic growth but also on reducing carbon GDP. What is the article's final suggestion regarding the climate policy crisis? The article concludes that multifaceted solutions like the NCA can address various dimensions of the climate policy crisis, terming it as a poly-solution to the problem. What sectors in India are highlighted as being impacted by climate change in the article? The sectors highlighted include energy, infrastructure, health, migration, and food production. How does the article describe the challenges posed by addressing the climate crisis in a sectoral manner? Addressing the climate crisis sectorally may lead to unexpected consequences elsewhere due to the interconnected nature of the poly crisis. What significance does the term carbon infrastructure hold in the context of the article? Just as digital infrastructure supports new startups and public services, carbon infrastructure is envisioned to provide opportunities for a thriving future carbon regime that integrates carbon considerations into every policy level. How does the article correlate carbon and public finance? The article suggests that by recognizing, capturing, valuing, accounting for, and taxing carbon, a revolution in public finance can be triggered, similar to how money accounting enables public finance. Why is the tracking of carbon inflows and outflows at a granular level emphasized? Granular tracking allows for the possibility of a progressive carbon tax system, penalizing larger carbon producers more effectively than average consumers. How does the article propose companies to integrate carbon concerns into their operations? The article proposes carbon accounting, which enables companies to track their carbon production, removal, storage, and offsetting, effectively keeping carbon books alongside financial books. How can a national carbon accounting (NCA) system influence public discourse? By making the carbon footprint of human activities transparent, an NCA can initiate a new form of public discourse that aligns development with ecological sustainability. Emergency era. What primary concern does the article raise about the government's stance towards journalism? The article raises concerns about the government's perceived intolerance towards critical journalism, impacting the freedom of the press as enshrined under Article 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution. What actions have been taken against the news website NewsClick? The government has acted against NewsClick and its editor-in-chief, arresting them under the provisions of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, without disclosing clear allegations. The website has also been under the scrutiny of the Enforcement Directorate, (ED), and the Income Tax Department since 2021. How have the courts responded to the situation? The Delhi High Court granted interim protection to NewsClick's editor-in-chief from arrest and deterred the ED from taking coercive action against the organization. Additionally, a lower court dismissed a complaint filed by the Income Tax Department related to a similar matter. Why is the article from the New York Times significant in this context? The New York Times article questioned the motives of an investor in NewsClick and alleged his proximity to the Chinese government. While it didn't point to specific illegal propaganda against India, government representatives used the article to criticize NewsClick. What is the chilling effect in the context of journalism? The chilling effect denotes the inhibition or discouragement of the legitimate exercise of a constitutional right. The actions against media outlets like NewsClick might create a chilling effect, discouraging critical journalism. How does the article connect the current situation with historical events? The article draws parallels between the arrest of Mr. Purkayastha during the emergency in 1975 under the Maintenance of Internal Security Act and the current actions against him and NewsClick, suggesting a repeat of history in suppressing dissent. What broader implications does the article suggest regarding freedom of expression and media's role in a democracy? The article underscores the significance of transparency in governmental actions, the role of enforcement agencies, and the judiciary's involvement in ensuring checks and balances. It emphasizes the importance of safeguarding civil liberties and the crucial role media plays in a democratic setup. How does the article highlight the significance of transparency in governmental actions? The article points out that the government has not clearly disclosed the specific allegations against NewsClick and its editor-in-chief, emphasizing the need for transparency in actions against media outlets. What legal provisions have been invoked against NewsClick and its editor-in-chief? The government has arrested the editor-in-chief of NewsClick under the provisions of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and other undisclosed charges. What role do the Enforcement Directorate, ED, and the Income Tax Department play in the scrutiny of NewsClick? NewsClick has been under the scrutiny of the ED and the Income Tax Department since 2021, leading to seizures of electronic equipment, although no charge sheet has been filed against the news outlet. How does the article view the actions against NewsClick in the context of freedom of expression? The article suggests that the government's actions, based mainly on suspicions about funding, brazenly target journalists and undermine the freedom of expression, which is constitutionally guaranteed. What parallel does the article draw between the present scenario and the emergency of 1975? The article draws a parallel by mentioning Mr. Purkayastha's arrest during the emergency in 1975 under the draconian Maintenance of Internal Security Act on fabricated charges, suggesting a similar suppression of dissent in the current scenario. How does the article perceive the government's response to foreign influence on domestic media? The article mentions the government's vilification campaign against NewsClick based on an article from the New York Times that questioned an investor's alleged ties to the Chinese government, emphasizing concerns about foreign influence on domestic media. What broader message does the article convey regarding the role of media in a democratic society? The article underscores the importance of critical journalism in a democratic society, suggesting that actions that stifle media outlets can have detrimental effects on democratic discourse and checks and balances. Let there be light. What is the significance of attoseconds in the study of quantum mechanics? Attoseconds, 10^18 seconds, are crucial for studying the observable properties of electrons in matter based on quantum mechanics. Who received the Nobel Prize in Physics for 2023, and why? Annie Loeillet, Pierre Agostini, and Ferenc Krauss were awarded the 2023 Nobel Prize in Physics for their contributions in building tools to study changes in matter at the attosecond scale. What were the key breakthroughs achieved by these scientists? Dr. Loeillet's team found that an infrared beam shone on a noble gas produced multiple overtones. Dr. Agostini and his team demonstrated the production of light with a pulse duration of 250 attoseconds. Dr. Krauss's team isolated a 650 attosecond pulse and used it to measure the kinetic energy of electrons in krypton atoms, marking the arrival of attosecond physics. How does the utility of attosecond physics compare with that of mRNA vaccines? While the utility of mRNA vaccines, which won the Medicine Nobel Prize, is straightforward due to their impact on the COVID-19 pandemic, the applications of attosecond physics are not as evident. However, electron dynamics at this scale have potential value in diverse fields like biochemistry and superconductivity. Why is there inherent value in scientific discoveries, even without immediate applications? Scientific discoveries can pave the way for the development of new methods and techniques that might benefit other areas of research. For instance, the 2016 chemistry laureates built molecular motors with no immediate applications but developed techniques that advance other areas of chemistry. What was the concluding thought in the article regarding scientific discoveries and their applications? The article concludes by emphasizing that not all scientific advancements have direct known applications. However, the excitement lies in the potential of discovering their future applications and the value in making challenging tasks more accessible through these discoveries. How are attoseconds relevant to the behavior of electrons in matter? Attoseconds are used to study the rapid changes in the observable properties of electrons in matter, which occur in just a few hundred attoseconds according to quantum mechanics. What did Dr. Lehoullier's team discover about infrared beams and noble gases? Dr. Lehoullier's team found that when an infrared beam was shone on a noble gas, it produced multiple overtones, or waves with wavelengths that were integer fractions of the original light wave. How did the concept of constructive and destructive interference play a role in these findings? The overtone waves could combine in such a way that, if their peaks aligned, they would create a more intense peak, constructive interference. Conversely, when one wave's peak matched another's trough, they would cancel out, destructive interference. In what year did attosecond physics make its notable arrival? Attosecond physics notably arrived in 2001 when Dr. Agostini's team produced light with a pulse duration of 250 attoseconds, and Dr. Krause's team used a 650 attosecond pulse to measure the kinetic energy of electrons in krypton atoms. How does the article suggest that the applications of scientific research can sometimes be unforeseen or indirect? The article underscores that while certain research, like that of the 2016 chemistry laureates, may not have immediate known applications, the techniques developed can benefit other research areas. This emphasizes the intrinsic value in scientific exploration, even without direct applications. What potential fields might benefit from the advancements in attosecond physics? The specific dynamics of electrons observed using attosecond physics could have potential implications in fields like biochemistry, diagnostics, superconductivity, and advanced manufacturing techniques. How does the article emphasize the unpredictability of scientific research value over time? By citing the work of the 2016 chemistry laureates and their then unknown applications, the article underscores that the true value or applications of research might only become evident in the future, suggesting an inherent worth in scientific exploration. Women's quota, panchayats to parliament. What is the significance of the Constitution, 106th Amendment, Act? It reserves one-third of the total seats in the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies for women. It is the first law passed in the new parliament building. How does this amendment connect to past initiatives in India? The amendment arrives on the 30th anniversary of constitutional reforms that reserved one-third of seats in panchayats and municipalities for women. Since then, there have been numerous attempts to extend this reservation to the Lok Sabha and state assemblies. How has women's representation in local governance evolved over the years? Since the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments, which sought to empower panchayats and municipalities as self-governing institutions, there has been a mandated reservation for women, SCs, STs, and provisions for OBCs. This has led to a system where almost half of the over 3 million elected panchayat representatives are women. How does the current women's reservation law consider intersectionality? The law recognizes the compounded disadvantage due to caste and gender identities, implementing both vertical and horizontal reservations. However, it doesn't enable reservation for OBC women. Have studies shown tangible benefits of women's reservation in local governance? Mixed findings are reported. Some studies found women-led panchayats invested more in public services. However, other research suggests that women's reservations may have adverse effects on welfare program targeting and no significant difference in leadership performance compared to men. Notably, reservations may favor upper caste women over OBC women. How should the experience of women's reservation in local governance influence its implementation in Parliament? The 30-year experience in local governance should inform the design for Parliament and state assemblies. Given the different roles women play at different governance levels, the impact might differ. But the introduction of such a significant amendment should have been more transparent and after broader discussion. Are there potential challenges tied to the current women's reservation laws implementation? Yes, the law's implementation is tied to delimitation and census, which don't have fixed dates. The 2026 end to the constitutional freeze for delimitation, based purely on population, may reduce the southern states' share in Parliament, potentially affecting federal relations. Linking women's reservations with the contentious delimitation makes its future uncertain. Is there hope for the near-term implementation of the women's reservation law? The broad consensus in passing the bill may hint at potential agreement on its implementation in the foreseeable future. How does the Constitution, 106th Amendment, Act mark a milestone in India's democratic journey? It signifies a formal commitment to enhancing women's representation at the national and state legislative levels, strengthening gender equality in India's political landscape. Why did previous attempts to extend women's reservation to the Lok Sabha and state assemblies fail? The attempts faced political hurdles, with disagreements and lack of consensus among various parties and stakeholders. How do reservations in local governments, such as panchayats, compare to those in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies in terms of percentage? Many states have enacted laws that reserve 50% of seats for women in local governments, while the Constitution, 106th Amendment, Act aims for a one-third reservation in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies. What role has research played in understanding the impact of women's reservation in local governance? Various studies have been conducted to assess the effect of women's reservation. These research efforts offer insights into women-led panchayats' priorities, efficiency in public service delivery, and the dynamics of caste and gender in leadership roles. Why is the intersectionality of caste and gender significant in the context of reservations? Intersectionality acknowledges the compounded disadvantages individuals might face due to their position at the intersection of multiple social categorizations, making it essential to address these layered disparities through reservations. What potential issues arise from tying the women's reservation law to the delimitation and census processes? Tying the law to these processes introduces uncertainties regarding its implementation timeline. Additionally, the upcoming delimitation might lead to contentious federal relations, especially if southern states see reduced representation in Parliament. What are the anticipated benefits of increased women's representation at higher legislative levels? Advocates hope that greater women's representation will lead to more inclusive policy making, addressing women-centric issues more effectively, and diversifying the political discourse. How might the dynamics of caste politics affect the future of women's reservations, based on studies? Some studies suggest that constituencies reserved for women might be more likely to elect upper caste women over OBC women, indicating that caste dynamics can influence the outcome of gender-based reservations. The rollercoaster that was the 2023 monsoon. How can the 2023 southwest monsoon season be characterized in terms of its rainfall pattern? The 2023 southwest monsoon season began with a severe deficit in June, turned surplus in July, experienced the driest August since 1901, and concluded with record rains in September, leading to an overall, normal, monsoon. Which climate phenomena are primarily linked to the erratic behavior of the monsoon in 2023? The erratic behavior of the 2023 monsoon is attributed to the effects of El Niño and the positive Indian Ocean Dipole, IOD. What impact does El Niño typically have on the Indian monsoon? El Niño, which is characterized by the periodic warming of sea surface temperatures in the eastern and central Pacific, often results in below normal monsoon rainfall in India. How does a positive Indian Ocean Dipole, IOD, influence the monsoon? A positive IOD, where the western part of the Indian Ocean is warmer than average and the eastern part is cooler, is generally associated with above average monsoon rainfall in India. Despite 2023 being an El Niño year, how did the monsoon manage to remain normal? Favorable conditions in the Indian Ocean, notably a positive IOD, mitigated the typical effects of El Niño, helping to maintain a normal monsoon season in 2023. Apart from El Niño and IOD, are there any other factors that can modify the Indian monsoon patterns? Yes, other regional and global atmospheric patterns, such as the Eurasian snow cover, can also influence the Indian monsoon, adding complexity to its predictions. What does the term long period average (LPA) refer to in the context of the monsoon? The LPA refers to the average rainfall received between 1971 and 2020. It serves as a benchmark against which rainfall in a particular year is compared. Which regions of India experienced deficient rainfall during the 2023 monsoon season? Regions like Eastern Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Gangetic West Bengal, South Interior Karnataka, and Kerala ended the season with deficient rainfall. Conversely, which regions witnessed surplus rainfall in the same period? Saurashtra and Kutch, and West Rajasthan experienced surplus rainfall during the 2023 monsoon season. How do La Niña conditions typically affect the monsoon in India? La Niña, characterized by the periodic cooling of sea surface temperatures in the eastern and central Pacific, is generally associated with surplus rain in India. Which meteorological event occurred in August 2023 that was historic in terms of its dryness? August 2023 was recorded as the driest August since 1901. Given the variability of rainfall in El Niño and La Niña years, is it accurate to say they are the sole determinants of the Indian monsoon's behavior? No. While El Niño and La Niña influence the Indian monsoon, they are not the sole determinants. Other factors, both regional and global, can also impact the monsoon, making its prediction complex. How did the predictions of weather agencies for the 2023 monsoon compare with the actual outcomes? Many weather agencies, including the IMD, had predicted a below normal rainfall for 2023 due to it being an El Niño year. However, thanks to favorable conditions in the Indian Ocean and other factors, the monsoon ended up being normal. What significance does the percentage departure from the LPA have when assessing monsoon rainfall? The percentage departure from the LPA indicates the difference between the actual rainfall and the average rainfall, LPA. A significant deviation, either as a surplus or deficit, provides insights into the behavior of the monsoon for that particular year.